Hi everyone. Good morning. Today's study quote: Study hard no matter if it seems impossible, no matter if it takes time, no matter if you have to up all night. Just remember that the feeling of success is the best thing in entire world. In today's paper, I am covering these articles. India China agree to hold more talks to resolve LAC standoff. Modi quits Chinese social media site. GST revenues plunge 41% in first quarter. Lacks on safety. Promise and delivery. First one. India China agree to hold more talks to resolve LAC standoff. Commanders emphasize need for expeditious, phased and stepwise de-escalation. The third round of COPS commander level talks on Tuesday between India and China, the second one after the June 15 Galvan Valley clashes, yielded the promise of more talks at the military and diplomatic levels to disengage at the face of sites along the LAC, line of actual control. 20 Indian soldiers were killed by Chinese troops in close quarters combat in the Galvan Valley, while Beijing has not given any official figure of its dead or wounded. Rajnath to visit Ladakh. In another sign that India is now taking the Chinese build-up along the LAC seriously, it was made known that Defence Minister Rajnath Singh would visit Ladakh on Friday. Both sides have emphasized the need for an expeditious, phased and stepwise de-escalation as a priority, an Indian military source said. This is in keeping with the agreement between the External Affairs Minister and his Chinese counterpart during their conversation on June 17 that the overall situation would be handled in a possible manner and that both sides would implement the disengagement understanding of June 6 sincerely. To achieve this, more meetings are expected both at the military and diplomatic levels to arrive at a mutually agreeable solution and to ensure peace and tranquility along the LAC as per bilateral agreements and protocols, the source stated. The talks between Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, General Officer Commanding of the Leh-based 14 Corps, and Major General Liu Lin, Commander of the South Xinjiang Military District, began around 11 am at the border meeting point at Chushul on the Indian side and went on for more than 12 hours. The process of disengagement was complex, the source said. The meeting was long and held in a business-like manner, keeping in view the COVID-19 protocols. The discussions reflected the commitment of both sides to reduce the tensions along the LAC. Responding to questions on the talks, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said the two sides continue working towards implementing the consensus reached at the two earlier rounds of commander-level talks and made progress in effective measures by frontline troops to disengage and de-escalate the situation. China welcomes that, Mr. Zhao said, emphasizing the need to keep close communication through military and diplomatic channels to ease the situation and reduce the temperature along the border. It has been learned that both sides agreed to take forward the stalled process of disengagement agreed earlier at all friction points in Ladakh. In the first round of senior commander talks on June 6, both sides identified 5 conflict areas: patrolling point PP 14, 15 and 17A, north of Pangong, So and Chushul, and agreed for limited de-escalation from some of these areas. It was during this de-escalation process near PP 14 in the Galvan Valley that the clash occurred. At the second round of talks on June 22, the two sides came to a mutual consensus to disengage along the LAC and the modalities for disengagement from all friction areas in eastern Ladakh were discussed. However, there has been no progress on the ground since. On the contrary, between the Galvan clash and the second round of talks, satellite images show that China has rebuilt the observation point and also additional defensive positions at Galvan. India's consistent demand has been the restoration of status quo ante of May 5 positions and de-induction of forces built up by China along the LAC. Modi quits Chinese social media site. Photo 115 posts removed from Weibo. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's official page on Chinese social media website Weibo went blank on Wednesday with the removal of his photograph and all 115 posts made over the past 5 years. Mr. Modi initiated the process of exiting Weibo following the Union government's decision to ban 59 Chinese apps. The government on Monday decided to impose the ban on the apps, including Weibo, citing threats to data security and India's sovereignty. This marks a sudden end to Mr. Modi's Weibo diplomacy that was launched with fanfare in 2015 as a means to directly communicate with the people of China before his first visit there as Prime Minister. His first message said, "Hello China. Looking forward to interacting with Chinese friends through Weibo." Mr. Modi had 2.44 lakh followers. On Tuesday, Mr. Modi's photograph was removed from his official page and only 2 posts of the 115 he posted over the past 5 years remain. Both had photographs of Mr. Modi with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It took 2 days for the last posts to be removed. According to government officials handling the matter, the procedure to exit Weibo was complex for official and verified accounts and an official process was initiated. The officials said the process was delayed for reasons best known to the Chinese side. Prime Minister Modi had 115 posts on Weibo. It was decided to manually delete them and after much effort, 113 posts were removed, said a source. There were 2 posts left and these are posts with photos of President Xi. On Weibo, it is difficult to remove posts with the photo of the Chinese president, which is why 2 posts still remain, said a source. PM was not very active on Weibo. Among his most circulated posts were birthday greetings to Xi Jinping. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has exited Weibo, posted infrequently on the Chinese social media website with 115 posts in 5 years, although his annual posts on the International Day of Yoga usually received wide attention in China. Among his most forwarded posts were his birthday greetings to President Xi Jinping conveyed every year. On June 20, 3 statements by the Indian Embassy on the recent border tensions posted on its account on WeChat, another popular social media app, were removed by Chinese authorities. Regulations violated. A message following the removal said the posts were taken down by violating regulations. Social media in China are subjected to extensive censorship regime. Among the foreign sites blocked in China are WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. On Tuesday, China hit out at India's move to block 59 apps. It described the action as a deliberate interference in practical cooperation between the 2 countries. China's state media warned that the move would bring economic repercussions such as affecting outbound Chinese investment into India. In separate statements issued by its foreign ministry and embassy in New Delhi, Beijing called on India to review the move. India's measure selectively and discriminatorily aims at certain Chinese apps on ambiguous and far-fetched grounds, runs against fair and transparent procedure requirements, abuses national security, exceptions and suspects of violating the WTO rules, the embassy said. It also goes against the general trend of international trade and e-commerce and is not conducive to consumer interests and market competition in India. Ban discussed widely. The ban was one of the most discussed topics on Chinese social media this week. In an editorial, the Communist Party-run Global Times slammed what it said was a lackluster explanation for the nonsensical move. If India's sovereignty can be damaged by a handful of apps, just how vulnerable is it? The paper said. It was not long before Indians realized that turning nationalist rhetoric into action is more difficult as there are no available and affordable alternatives to Chinese made products such as smartphones, chemicals, automotive components, and many other items. It seems that not only has the Modi government failed to rein in the rising nationalism among Indians, it has also yielded to domestic pressure and even encouraged such a boycott to escalate. Dip in investment. The newspaper said it had conducted a survey of experts who predicted Chinese overseas direct investment into India will drop sharply in 2020, with two experts forecasting a more than 50% cut. Bad feelings go both ways, and the chance for China-India relationship to pick up in the short term is slim. Chinese investors are on the edge with risk aversion instinct kicking in. Qian Feng, director of the research department of the National Strategy Institute at Tsinghua University, told the paper. He added that the coming year would not only see a 50% fall in Chinese investment in India, but would be a turning point in economic relations. GST revenues plunged 41% in first quarter. Goods and services tax collections for the April to June quarter stood at Rs 1.86 lakh crore, a 41% drop in comparison to the Rs 3.14 lakh crore collected in the same period last year. In the first clear indication of the COVID-19 impact on government revenues, the monthly GST collections data released by the Finance Ministry for the first time since March showed that revenues plunged during the lockdown. However, the June collections were more robust. Tax filing. The revenues during the financial year have been impacted due to COVID-19, firstly due to the economic impact of the pandemic, and secondly due to the relaxations given by the government in filing of returns and payment of taxes due to the pandemic, said an official statement. The ministry had eased tax filing deadlines due to the lockdown, allowing business to file their March, April and May returns by end of the June. GST collections for April crashed 72% to just Rs 32,294 crore. By May, the contraction had narrowed to 38% in comparison to the previous year, with collections of Rs 62,009 crore. June's GST collections stood at Rs 90,917 crore, only 9% lower than in June 2019. However, the ministry noted that during the month of June, returns of February, March and April 2020 have also been filed in addition to some returns of May 2020, since government has allowed a relaxed time schedule for filing of GST returns. Some returns of May 2020 which would have otherwise got filed in June 2020, while get filed during first few days of July 2020. The GST collections, while in the first quarter, have obviously witnessed a substantial dip because of the current pandemic. However, the increasing trend in June inclines to a recovery being in line soon, said Abhishek Jain, tax partner at Ernst & Young, India. Editorial page. Lax on safety. Deadly industrial accidents point to the low priority that laws and protocols get. Two deadly industrial disasters in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, leading to the loss of at least 8 lives and causing serious injuries to many, once again underscored the value of safety protocols. In a boiler blast at the Neyveli Thermal Power Station, 6 people were killed and a dozen workers suffered severe burns, while a toxic chemical leak at a pharmaceutical plant in Visakhapatnam led to 2 deaths immediately. These and 2 other recent disasters, also at a Neyveli power plant and the LG Polymers factory in the Visakhapatnam area, have come at a stressful time when India is trying to find its feet in the midst of the pandemic. What happened in Neyveli on Wednesday is inexplicable, since the power producer had encountered a boiler furnace blowout only on May 7 and had ordered a review of its infrastructure and process. Without meticulous care, boilers and dangerous pieces of equipment High pressure and superheated steam make for a lethal combination if their release mechanism is not kept in good order and there is an explosion. For this very reason, they are regulated strictly under the Indian Boilers Act, at least on paper. The terrible consequences of lax boiler safety were evident 3 years ago in Ray, Bareilly, when a blast at an NTPC power plant killed a few dozen people. But states have clearly not internalized a culture of zero tolerance to boiler accidents. The gas leak in Vishakhapatnam, apparently involving benzimidazole, a chemical used in pharmaceuticals, raises question on maintenance and operational procedures. The probe into how vapors of a stable but acutely toxic chemical escaped should lead to an upgrade to safety protocols. In the Neyveli incident, there is a suggestion that the boiler was not in operation as it had tripped and was in the process of being revived. Since the major operations of this equipment involved a furnace and production of steam, what led to an unexpected blowout? NLC India, a key power producer, has an obligation to present a transparent report on why its facilities are beset by mishaps. Occupational safety demands that boilers are operated by trained personnel, but some of those on the ground have been described as contract employees. It will take an independent probe to determine whether cost calculations guided staffing decisions in such a hazardous sector. The response of the center and states to industrial accidents is usually to stem public outrage by announcing compensation for victims. A transparent inquiry that leads to a fixing of responsibility and reform is a low priority. This culture must change. Such accidents are mostly preventable and occur rarely in the industrialized world because of impeccable attention to safety. India's aspirations to industrialize should be founded on safety. Promise and delivery. Even partially effective vaccines will be in demand, but the safety aspect is paramount. India's first indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin, developed by a Hyderabad-based company in collaboration with the ICMR, is all set to be tested on humans. The permission from the Drugs Control General of India to carry out Phase 1 and Phase 2 human clinical trials was based on the safety and efficacy results of studies on mice, rats and rabbits. The Phase 1 trial of the candidate vaccine using inactivated killed novel coronavirus will begin this month to test its safety. The virus used for developing the vaccine was isolated by the Pune-based National Institute of Virology from samples collected in India. Meanwhile, a Pune-based company is all set to manufacture 2-3 million doses of the University of Oxford vaccine if the results of its Phase 1 clinical trial, which are expected in the first week of July, are encouraging. Millions of doses more will be manufactured if the results of the combined Phase 2/3 trial are reassuring. In addition, the two companies are collaborating with universities and a biotechnology company to develop 3 more vaccines. With the pandemic raging and no antiviral available to treat severe COVID-19 patients, a vaccine that is even partially effective and protects for about a year will be in demand. Thus, an indigenous vaccine will mean guaranteed availability for Indians, while a significant percentage of the Oxford vaccine manufactured in India will be earmarked for local consumption. This is one reason why many countries are earnestly attempting to develop a vaccine. According to WHO, 17 candidate vaccines are in various stages of human clinical trial, while 132 are in preclinical trial stage. On June 25, China's CanSino Biologics COVID-19 vaccine because the first of the block when it was approved for use by the military for a period of 1 year. The Phase 1 and Phase 2 trials found the vaccine to be safe with a potential to protect against the disease. It is unclear if the vaccination will be optional or mandatory. While this is not the first time that countries have made vaccines under development available to the military even before the completion of the trial. There is growing concern that speeding up vaccine development by bypassing certain crucial stages of the trial process may prove counterproductive. In a poll in the US, one third have said they would not get immunized against COVID 19 even if a vaccine was widely available and affordable. While many expect science to find a quick fix, experts envisage 12 to 18 months to get a vaccine commercialized, if at all. But that timeline is already seen as aggressive. If scientists develop a safe, efficacious vaccine soon, public trust in science could grow substantially, but there would be serious consequences if it fails, particularly on the safety aspect. Regulatory agencies have a responsibility to ensure COVID 19 vaccines deliver what they promise.